Hello guys, in today's video I'll be showing you how to use the bush to jump scare your crush and then use some gas to... wait a minute, wrong script. I'll be showing you how to crush the Busch-Gass Gambit. There we go. Alright, so here we go. The Busch-Gass Gambit can happen after e4, e5, knight to f3 and bishop to c5. Well, in this position, I know that the engine loves to just go ahead and accept this gambit, but I would rather suggest that you first develop your bishop to c4. And now in this position, as you can see, the most played move is pawn to d6, which I'm not going to be covering today because that is not really the spirit of the true Busch-Gass Gambit. No, leave me alone. I just want to talk about the Busch-Gass Gambit. Alright, I'll get to that in the end of the video, but just two quick traps. Alright, so we are going to continue with knight to f6. This is how the Busch-Gass Gambit should be played. And now it's time to accept the pawn in the center. Knight captures on e5. Now looking at this position, the most common move which I want to cover today is getting castled. Let me just point out the other moves. For example, knight captures on e4 is a blunder. Pawn to d5, the third most played move, is a blunder. But the fourth most played move, knight to c6. Just know that this is a favorite line of a fellow gambitier, Mr. William Graif, a FIDE master who actually challenged Levy Rozman, aka Gotham Chess, to a duel in the Busch-Gass Gambit. So the whole chess world is on its toes to see this challenge being accepted. And just out of a pure respect to William, I'm not going to be covering this line in my video. And if you haven't heard of William Graif, you should go ahead and check out his channel. You are missing a lot. Alright, let's focus on the main line. So most guys are going to get castled here. Now there is something nice about this, because actually after watching this video you are probably going to win 100% of the time in this variation. And the reason is there is a very easy to learn tactic that you can use to just smash your opponents. And it all starts with pawn to d4, hitting the bishop, and pretty much no matter where the bishop moves, the engine likes the most if it goes to e7. But anyways, even if they play the most correct move here, you can still go for the same tactics. But let's just go one by one and see the most played lines. So the most played move here is bishop to b6. You can go ahead and sacrifice your knight on f7. They shouldn't really, if we turn the engine, they shouldn't capture the knight, they should play queen to e7. But as you can see, 94% of the players just capture the knight. But let's just see, queen to e7, you can now move your knight right back. It's a discovered check, so the king slides over, and now you simply get castled. And look at these most played moves here. Most guys got greedy and captured on e4, but here comes queen to h5 with a nasty threat that is hardly visible. And as you can see, most guys just got even greedier and captured on d4, which allows this beautiful checkmate, a royal fork or sort of. Okay, if they didn't capture the pawn on d4, then most guys play knight back to f6 to harass the queen, but still knight to g6 happens and it's over. Okay. This is just a nice variation if they don't accept the knight on f7. But as you can see, 94% of the players captured. You are going to capture with the bishop, and after they capture, here you have a strong follow-up with pawn to e5. Hitting the knight, once again, they shouldn't move the knight, they should play queen to e7. But most guys are just going to terribly blunder on the next move with knight to d5, which allows this fork, and you are winning just like this. And if they figure out it's a little bit fishy to go to d5 with the knight, then the second most played move is knight back to e8. But here comes the queen. Queen goes to h5, and notice how they should play pawn to g6, which would allow our queen even deeper into their territory. Nobody wants to play this. They rather hide the king on g8. But look at this. Bishop to g5, and the queen is trapped. Lucky for them, they have this knight to spare. But yeah, as you can see, super winning for white. So let's go back. What if they play the correct move and they play queen to e7? Well, you are simply going to get castled. They need to once again move the knight to e8, but most guys are going to play this funny blunder of knight to d5, which gets forked. But even if they play correctly, you are still having a great advantage. And the thing is, you are going to push your pawns forward and just suck the life out of your opponent's pieces, as very soon they are not going to be able even to move. So here most guys continue with pawn to c6, and you just go pawn to c5. And after something like this, you can even start marching your f-pawn, and you will eventually go ahead, push this pawn, get the f-file open so that your rook can just get to the king. Alright, let's go back. This was after pawn to d4, and they park their bishop to b6. Let's see the second most played move, which is going to be even worse for them, and it is bishop to b4 check. So we are going to go ahead and block this check. Now the engine is yelling that it's time to park the bishop on e7, which your opponents are going to be reluctant to do. They will rather go bishop to a5. But now this is even worse for them. We can even turn off the engine. Once again, you can capture with your knight or your bishop. I think it doesn't really matter that much, because anyways they are most likely to just go ahead and capture, get this trade off, and once again you push pawn to e5, harassing the knight, and knight to d5, once again the most played move. But this one is even worse, because after queen to f3 check, they are going to go to g8, and now you can even pick up two pieces. So this is funny. Let's go back. So how about they move the queen to e7 in this position? Well, this is not going to be working for them, because you are just going to get castled. Now, once again, knight to d5 would hang the knight, so they would have to go knight to e8, but you still hit them with queen to f3 check. You force the king to g8, and now you are going to be able to pick up the bishop. So, as you can see, going bishop to b4, hitting with the check, and then parking the bishop on a5 is no good to them. The third most played move here is bishop to d6. Well, this one is pretty self-explanatory. You just go ahead and do your business on f7, and once you get this trade going, then you just hit them with pawn to e5 fork. Queen to e7 is no good, because you get castled and you pick up the piece on the next turn, no matter what. So this is not playable. And the fourth most played move here is simply pawn to d6, trying to counter-attack our knight. But once again, this one is a big failure, thanks to knight captures on f7, rook captures, bishop captures, and then of course you get to capture a free bishop in the end. And poor black people, I mean, poor black players even mess up more and capture this seemingly free pawn, but afterwards you hit them with queen to d5 check. Alright guys, let's go back for the last time, and let's see the bishop to e7 one. Let's turn on the engine for this one, as I'm not so good with my memory. So here you have a nice advantage, 2.2, if you play queen to e2 and try to go for some kind of slow attack. But I would suggest that you still go for your stuff with knight captures on f7, even though the engine thinks that this is a mistake. But look at this. Once again, most guys are going to play this ridiculous knight to d5. And if they play correctly and play knight to e8, you can march your pawns forward, as I mentioned in the first line. Let's see this, for example, after king to g8, you push pawn to c4, and this one guy tried to play pawn to c5 to get some space going for him, but this fails because you push your pawns forward. Now this bishop is almost trapped. It has this square, but have a look at this. By pushing the pawns forward, we created this square for our queen to come in with a check. We force the king to slide over and we bring our queen to f7. And as you can see, we are now threatening the back rank checkmate. And the only way to stop the queen is to sacrifice the knight. Alright guys, so since you were well behaved, let's go to the beginning. Uh, 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 uh. Knight to f3, bishop to c5, bishop to c4, knight to f6. I wanted to talk about this. So bishop to c4 and pawn to d6. So let me just show you two quick variations. As you can see, the engine is going for pawn to c3. This is what I would like to play as well. And after this, two most played moves are bishop to g4 and knight to f6. So let's start with bishop to g4. Here you can go queen to b3. You are creating this nice battery, and also you are aiming for the b7 pawn. The best move, bishop to h5, is not played very often. Most guys are going to either capture on f3, or the second most played move is already a blunder with queen to f6, which gets hit with queen captures on b7 and you will be winning the rook. But if they capture the knight on f3, you can now throw in this check. The king slides over, you recapture the bishop, and here is where they usually go queen to f6. They hit the f3 pawn, so you have to guard it with your king, which is a little bit annoying, but don't worry, because here most guys are going to capture the bishop and you can get the b7 pawn and get the rook in the end. So this should be winning for you. And in the line of the knight to f6, I would recommend that you continue with pawn to d4. They will capture this, you will recapture back, and they will hit you with bishop to b4 check. Now in this position, I would rather play this mistake of knight to c3, which warmly welcomes the move knight captures on e4, putting pressure on the pinned piece, but this is fine for us. We are going to play another mistake of capturing on f7. Now they shouldn't, but 85% of the players will capture the bishop, which is a mistake, and you can hit them with queen to b3 check. You are going to pick up the dark square bishop, but look at this. Once again, the most common reply looks nice to develop a bishop, cover the king and hit the queen back, but this is another mistake, because now after you capture this, well, since their knight is hanging, they are going to most likely be capturing on c3, but you're throwing this in between move knight to g5 check, and after the king moves, you recapture the knight, and as you can see, this is a very nice position for white. We have multiple targets that we can go for in the future. Also, their b7 pawn is hanging, which they are not allowed to protect. If they push something like this, you can see this almost +4 for white now. Alright guys, hopefully you had some fun and you will crush some Busch-Gass Gambiteers. And also hopefully William will not be angry at me for exploiting the Busch-Gass Gambit, but not his favorite line. It would be funny if he starts to go uh, recording some refutation of my gambits. Hopefully he will not do that. Hi William, if you're watching. Hi, hi, hi. You people go ahead and watch his videos. Hey. Alright, take care, have fun. Bye.